The FBI thought it would be a normal investigation, but when they went to the private estate of famous actor Gene Hackman, they were shocked to find a hidden tunnel stretching for miles beneath the property's foundations. At first glance, it looked like an abandoned bunker, but what they found inside would change everything. What was Hackman hiding, and why had no one found this secret before? Stay tuned, because this story is about to get interesting. Takes a turn you won't see coming. Gene Hackman was one of the most famous and respected actors of his time, with roles in classic movies like The French Connection, Unforgiven, and Enemy of the State. In 2004, he disappeared from the film industry, quitting acting and living a very private life. He moved far away from Hollywood and avoided the spotlight completely. Fans thought he just wanted peace, but rumors spread of strange activities going on in his life. He hid his life from the public by building underground and seeing strange people at odd hours. Some people thought there was more to it than that, and it had everything to do with his background. If you've ever been told you weren't good enough, Gene Hackman's story is one you need to hear. He wasn't born into Hollywood fame, he didn't have connections, and he wasn't the kind of actor casting directors fought over. In fact, he was voted least likely to succeed. But what if I told you that the things that people thought were his weaknesses became his strengths? This is the untold story of how Gene Hackman beat the odds, one rejection, one failure, and one fight at a time. And trust me, the road wasn't easy. Gene Hackman wasn't raised in luxury. His childhood was marked by instability as his father moved from town to town with jobs. He was born on January 30th, 1930 in San Bernardino, California, and young Gene had no idea that his life would be full of surprises. His father worked as a newspaper reporter, pressman, but even though it was a good job, it didn't pay very well. His mother, Anna, tried to keep the family together, but money was always tight. Then it happened. When Gene was only 13, his father left the family. There wasn't a big fight, no loud goodbyes, and no promises to come back. His father just shook Gene's hand, got in his car, and drove off, never looking back. That one event changed Gene's view on life. He learned that trust wasn't easy after that. People could leave at any time. The world wasn't fair, and he had to survive on his own. But he buried his pain deep inside, starting a fire that would burn for decades. Gene wasn't a great student. He was rebellious and hated authority. His teachers saw him as disruptive and didn't believe what he told them. He was just another troublemaker who wasn't going anywhere in life. At home, things weren't any better. His mother struggled to support the family. He didn't know what he wanted, but he knew he didn't want to be normal. Then, when he was 16, Gene made a big choice that would change his life. He dropped out of high school and lied about his age to join the U.S. Marine Corps. He did this because he was looking for something bigger than himself. The Marine Corps wasn't a place for dreamers. It was a harsh, disciplined, and unforgiving world. And for someone like Gene, who had spent his whole life looking for rude awakening when he was sent to work as a radio operator in China, Japan, and Hawaii, there he learned structure, discipline, and resilience. But even in the military, he didn't quite fit in. Gene often found himself in disagreement with his superiors, questioning rules and pushing boundaries. His rebellious nature hadn't gone away, it had just been buried under military uniforms and strict rules. But something strange happened during those years while he was on duty at night while other soldiers... As Gene played cards or drank, he daydreamed about acting in a... It was a strange dream for someone who had never been in a play, taken a drama class, or even seen the inside of a movie set. But the dream was there, waiting for the right time to come to the surface. After 3 years, Gene was honorably discharged from the Marines in 1951. He didn't have a high school diploma or a clear career path, so he bounced between odd jobs, working in factories, and doing radio work. He even went to journalism school at the University of Illinois, but nothing felt right. Acting was the only thing that kept calling to him, so he did something most people would have thought was crazy. He packed his bags and moved to New York City to become an actor. He learned the hard way that Hollywood isn't kind to outsiders. When he got there, he was older than most actors to be, and didn't have the connections or money that younger actors did. He went to the Pasadena Playhouse, a well-known acting school in California, but things didn't go as planned. Instead of being supported, he was scathingly criticized. His teachers didn't believe in him. His classmates made fun of his rugged good looks. In fact, they voted him the least likely to succeed. Think about that for a moment. The man who went on to win 2 Academy Awards was once told he had no future in acting. Most people would have given up right there. He had nothing to lose because he had already been rejected and left alone once, so he promised himself he would prove them all wrong. The next 10 years were full of failures. He worked dead-end jobs to pay the rent and tried out for roles but was turned down over and over again because casting directors said he didn't have the right face for Hollywood. But his friendship with two other struggling actors, Dustin Hoffman and Robert, at the time, they were just three broke dreamers living in tiny apartments and taking whatever roles they could find. They supported each other and pushed each other to keep going, even when things looked hopeless. Little did they know that their big break was just around the corner. Gene finally got a small part in the 1964 movie Lilith after years of hard work. It was something, even if it wasn't much. Then, in 1967, he got the part of Clyde's brother, Buck Barrow, played by Warren Beatty in Bonnie and Clyde. The movie was a huge hit and nominated for several Academy Awards. All of a sudden, Gene Hackman was a rising star instead of just another struggling actor. Then came the role that would change his life forever. He was cast as Popey Doyle in The French Connection in 1971. His performance was so raw and real that it will never be forgotten. The movie became a classic and earned Gene Hackman his first Academy Award for Best Actor. Mann was now a household name in Hollywood, and parts kept coming in, solidifying his reputation as one of the best actors of all time with each movie. Then, in 2004, Hackman made the shocking decision to retire from acting after more than 50 years in the business. He didn't say goodbye or make a big deal about it. He just left quietly, as if he was determined to never be seen again. He never went out in public, gave interviews, or left his house for whatever reason, because there was nothing left. Instead, he focused on writing, which was another love of his. Once he became a writer, he published several books and lived a peaceful life away from the chaos of Hollywood. In his 90s, Hackman lived a quiet life in New Mexico. He was sometimes seen riding his bike and seemed to be in good health. Most stars find it hard to leave the spotlight, but Hackman seemed happy writing books and living a quiet life in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But was it really that easy? His estate was the subject of Some residents talked in whispers about strange things happening at night, like cars coming and going without warning and people moving around in the dark. For years, no one thought about it because why would a famous actor be involved in something fishy? But then something happened that made the FBI take action. According to people close to him, he was just enjoying his quiet life, but some thought he had something to hide. One of the few people who saw him on a regular basis was his wife, Betsy Arakawa. He and Arakawa had been together for decades, and despite his fame, he kept a strong relationship with her. Their love story developed behind closed doors, away from the prying eyes of the public. Unlike many Hollywood marriages, which happen in front of flashing security cameras, she was the only one who had a real relationship with the man behind the legendary performances for decades. But why did they do it? Hackman went to great lengths to keep their relationship a secret, even though Gene Hackman rarely spoke or appeared in public. One thing about his life never changed: his first heartbreak and the surprising turn that led him to Betsy, the woman who would support him through it all. Before he became famous in Hollywood, Hackman fell in love with a young woman named Faye Maltz and married her before he met Betsy. They got married in 1967. He hopped from odd jobs to auditions and was turned down every time. Faye was there for him the whole time. Then everything changed when he got the part of Bonnie and Clyde and became a household name. Hollywood wanted more of him, so he did more movies, interviews, and red carpet appearances, and as his fame grew, so did his marriage. When he was a nobody, Faye was by his side, but as a rising star, the demands of success forced them to split up. Hackman's marriage to Faye ended in 1986 after 30 years of marriage. He didn't talk much about it, but people who knew him say it left a scar that made him unwilling to let anyone into his heart again. Then he met Betsy. Hackman hadn't met Betsy before. She was a businesswoman and a talented pianist who wasn't interested in becoming a Hollywood star, which may be why he fell in love with her. When they met, Hackman was still married to Faye in the early 1980s, but his relationship with Betsy grew after his divorce in 1986. In contrast to his first marriage, Hackman refused to let his fame get in the way of his marriage to Betsy in 1991. He didn't have a fancy wedding in Hollywood, he didn't talk about his feelings for her, and he didn't make any public appearances with her. Instead, he lived a quiet life away from the chaos of Hollywood. And Betsy was the one who convinced him to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where they could fade into obscurity once he retired from acting in 2004. But was Hackman's isolation really a way to keep their relationship alive? Or it's possible that even Betsy, the person he trusted the most, didn't know all the secrets he was keeping. At the end of 2023, there was a change. Hackman reportedly stopped maintenance workers from getting close to certain parts of his property and avoided longtime friends and even neighbors as if he was nervous. Tragic events then happened. After a few weeks, news came out that Gene Hackman had died at age 95, apparently of heart disease, which wasn't a surprise for someone his age. But what happened next was even more disturbing. Hackman's wife, Betsy Araki, was found dead in their home a few days after Hackman. According to the official account, she had a medical emergency, but there were rumors that something wasn't right. Why did she die so soon after Hackman? What stopped either of them from having a public memorial, and why Hackman had been acting so strangely in the months before he died? Then there was an even more shocking revelation. At first, the police thought there was nothing strange about Hackman and his wife's deaths. But as they looked over the property's paperwork, they saw something. Hackman had been doing a lot of research in the months before he died. His home office was empty of his personal papers, and among his things were strange, unidentified plans. Why were these plans made? They told investigators about a huge network of underground tunnels that had never been officially recorded, which surprised them when they looked into them. This is when the case took a sharp turn. The FBI wasn't called in because Hackman had died, but because of what he might have known before he died. The FBI searched the whole mansion because there were too many unresolved issues. When agents first found the hidden entrance in Hackman's estate, they thought it was just an old storage basement, but as they went deeper, they realized this wasn't Hackman's hideout at all. The tunnel was huge, hundreds of feet below, and its walls were made of thick concrete and steel beams. Hackman hadn't built it himself, it had been there for decades. When they got there, they found an old steel door that was locked from the inside. Agents quickly forced it open, and when it finally did, what they saw that left them speechless. There was an underground room with old, broken equipment, strange documents, and even stranger things. The walls were covered in cryptic notes and symbols, written in a language that some thought was an old military code. There were also stacks of classified documents, some from the 1940s, stamped with government logos, and large storage containers that were locked and their contents unknown. The deeper they went, the scarier it got. In the middle of the room was a big metal structure that looked like some kind of containment unit. It was old and the tunnel was covered in dust, but its design was far more advanced than what should have been available when it was first built. There were records that something or someone had been kept there, and one document found tucked away in a corner had a single warning: do not open under any circumstances. As the FBI looked through the records, a scary theory began to form. Hackman's mansion had been built on top of an abandoned Cold War facility that was never meant to be found. The project had been put on hold in the 1950s. Some thought it had something to do with secret U.S. government experiments on nukes, while others said it had something to do with biological testing gone wrong. Had Hackman found out about this before he died, and more worryingly, had someone shut him up to keep it a secret? As FBI agents looked through the sealed storage containers, they thought they had reached the heart of the mystery, but sources close to the case say what they found was so shocking that it changed the whole course of whatever the investigation was. The government moved quickly. Within hours, federal authorities sealed off the site and moved the contents to a secret location. G. Hackman's rise to fame wasn't instant, easy, or handed to him. He was turned down, made fun of, and told he would never make it, but he never gave up, and in the end, he proved everyone wrong. So the next time someone tells you you can't do something, remember that Gene Hackman also thought she couldn't. Until he did.